She called at 11:47 p.m., the kind of hour chosen by someone who wants to see you bleed without leaving a mark. Her voice came through the line sharp and trembling with satisfaction. "Your father left you 7 luxury yachts worth millions," she said, almost singing the words. "But I already sold them to my friends. They're gone forever." For a moment, the world stood still. Then I smiled. "Thanks for letting me know," I said quietly, and hung up. That was the last time she thought she'd won. Because while she celebrated, thinking she'd destroyed everything my father left me, I was already 3 steps ahead. By the time she learned the truth, every yacht she thought she sold was gone, not to her friends, but back to me. And when she finally realized what I'd done, her silence was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. I met her the day I married her son, Mark. She stood at the top of the church steps like she owned the place, pearls wrapped tight around her neck like armor. Her smile didn't reach her eyes when she said, "Welcome to the family." That was her first lie. Her eyes said something else entirely. "You'll never belong here." Still, I tried. Every Sunday, I brought her tea. I remembered her birthdays, her favorite flowers, even laughed at her cruel jokes just to keep peace. Mark always said, "She's just protective," as if cruelty could be disguised as love. But deep down, I knew. She wasn't protecting her son. She was protecting control. And when my father passed, she finally saw her opportunity to destroy me. My father had left me his shipyard empire, 7 custom yachts, each handcrafted with his precision and pride, docked in the private marina we built together. To me, they weren't just symbols of wealth, they were pieces of him. Every deck, every polished beam carried his patience, his voice, his belief in me. And that's exactly why she wanted them gone. It started small, almost invisible. A transfer paper missing from the office safe. A key slightly warm when I picked it up from the hook. At first, I ignored it. Grief makes you paranoid, right? But paranoia also keeps you alive. I began checking the harbor logs myself, and what I found made my stomach turn. My name, my signature, on 7 separate documents of sale. Each one transferring ownership of my father's yachts to people I'd never met. And each buyer? One of her bridge club friends. Women who sipped martinis and bragged about their husbands' golf trophies, now proudly sailing off with what my father built. When I confronted Mark, he brushed it off. "Mom helps with the estate sometimes. You're overreacting." But I knew better. Every instinct screamed that she'd forged it all. That night, I sat in my father's study, staring at his old leather chair and the faint smell of cedar that lingered after him. My hands shook as I opened his laptop, the one he told me to keep for emergencies. Inside was a folder named Contingencies. He'd always said, "A good captain plans for storms you can't see coming." He was right. Inside that folder were every registration document, every legal clause tied to each yacht. My father had buried them under layers of holding companies, each with performance clauses, environmental bonds, and reversion rights. Meaning, those sales she made? Void upon legal review. Every one of them. But I didn't act immediately. No, that would have been too easy. Revenge isn't about rage. It's about rhythm. It's about patience. I wanted her to believe she'd won. So I visited her the next weekend. I smiled, complimented her cooking, even let her brag about how she'd helped settle my father's messy estate. She laughed and patted my hand. "You're free now, dear. No more heavy responsibilities." I smiled back and said, "You're right. I finally feel lighter." She mistook my calm for defeat. That was her second mistake. Weeks passed. The buyers docked their new yachts at the marina, hosting champagne parties on decks that still bore my father's initials. I watched from my balcony, invisible behind my glass. I let her gloat. I let her tell everyone how I couldn't handle the business. How she'd saved the family name. Every rumor she started only fueled what came next. When the last payment cleared, I struck. I filed one motion with the Maritime Court, quiet, precise, backed by every document my father left me. I attached proof of the forged signatures, the illegal transfers, and the original ownership clauses. Within 48 hours, every single yacht was impounded by federal order. The buyers, her dear friends, found their accounts frozen, their assets under investigation for fraud. And still, I didn't call her. I wanted her to hear the panic from someone else first. It didn't take long. The first whisper came through her bridge club. Then the calls started. Her friends demanded explanations, furious that they'd been implicated in something criminal. When her phone finally lit up with my name, I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. "You did this," she hissed, voice shaking. "You can't just—" "Actually," I interrupted softly, "I can. They were never yours to sell." Silence. Then breathing, fast, furious, frightened. "You'll regret this," she spat. "Maybe," I said, "but not tonight." She hung up. That should have been the end. But she couldn't help herself. That night, at 11:47, the phone rang again. Her voice trembled with rage and desperation. "Your father's yachts are gone. I sold them. You'll never get them back." I smiled. "Thanks for letting me know." Because while she was still trying to hurt me, the harbormaster was delivering the final blow. By morning, he would call her, explaining that every sale had been declared fraudulent and reversed. That all her friends had lost everything, and she was now the official subject of an investigation for orchestrating the scheme. When he told me later how her face went pale, how she just stared out at the water, unable to speak, I felt something I hadn't in months. Peace. Mark left a week later. No fight. No apology. Just silence. Maybe he finally realized what kind of woman his mother was, or maybe he realized what kind of woman I'd become. The marina feels different now. The water is calm again. The gulls circle lazily above the gold lettering on each hull, my father's name shining proudly under the morning sun. Sometimes, I walk the docks at night, the wind brushing past the sails, the masts creaking softly like whispers of the past. It sounds like justice breathing. People sometimes ask if I ever regret it, if revenge was worth it. I always smile and say, revenge isn't about hate, it's about balance. Because in the end, I didn't just take back what she stole. I took back my father's legacy. I took back my peace. And most of all, I took back me.